Hello, Namaste. Welcome to another video from outfromindia.com. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about my experience working part-time in London. So the way the video is structured is that I will give you the basic facts about where I used to work and stuff, and then I would go into the positives of working there part-time for me and the negatives of working there part-time for me again. And then I will talk to you in general about what my experience was and what would I say to you or not if you are looking to work part-time in London or generally in the UK. So I used to work as a cashier at a gambling shop in Southeast London. I used to live in East London and I used to travel from Zone 1 to Zone 4 in Southeast London. So that was quite a travel. So the shop was about an hour away from where I used to live. I used to earn about between 800 to 1200 pounds. I did have the option to work overtime at the shop. Sometimes I did work overtime, which is not advisable when you're a student, but I did. What else? Yeah. So since I had to travel from East London to Southeast London, which is across four zones in London, I had to spend about £135 a month on the travel card. So out of 800 or 900 pounds that I would get every month, I would simply dump £135 to my student Oyster card. So the biggest benefit for me of working there was that because my accommodation fees and my tuition fees my tuition fees was covered by my education loan. My accommodation fees was kind of sponsored by my mother. So I did not have to pay for the accommodation fees, and £800 was sort of enough for me to pull through the month. And that was the first benefit. The second benefit was that the team that I was working with was simply amazing. They were incredible. They were really supportive. The manager that I was working for, he was also very sensitive and very, he was very sensitive to the fact that I was a student and I was simply working there part-time. So he would understand if I would say that I can't come on this day, or I have a class, or I have a meeting with a professor, then he would understand. So he was very understanding as well. But there were lots of negatives, not in terms of working at the shop itself. I mean, there were some negatives of working at that shop in that area. But the biggest kind of negative points for working part-time in London for me were, number one, the money got to my head. I will not lie about this. Seeing at the end of every month my Barclays account telling me, okay, you have received a payment of about £900 from this company, I would be like, wow, I've got money for the work that I'm doing. And it was not like I was working for the first time in my life. I had worked before, but then that money in London, I was living alone, and I knew that this money was all mine. I did not have to spend on anything else or on anyone else. So it did get to my head, and sometimes I would just buy things that I would probably not need, and spend more money. And whenever I would go out with a friend, I would end up spending £7 or £10 just for a meal and a drink or something like that. And then what that would do to me is that if I'm spending more money, then I have to earn more money. So naturally, I would do overtime. So I started doing overtime as well, and then I started earning more money, but then the money was just getting to my head. The second problem was that I was, I was just kind of not focused on my academics. Because the money got to my head, that was one reason. The second reason was that I had about 6 to 8 hour long shifts generally. So my shift would start either at about 3 in the afternoon until 10 in the night. And sometimes it would start at about 7:30 in the morning until 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So whenever I had to do an evening shift that would start from 3 or from 4 or sometimes from even 2 in the afternoon, then I would get up at 8 and I would, sit for my study at about 9 a.m. in the morning, and I would study until 2 or sometimes even 3. But because I had 1 hour to travel to the shop from my place, I had to leave an hour earlier. So I essentially had just about 4 hours uh, on the days when I had evening shifts to study. So I could not have long sessions of studies. I mean, I could not sit for about 8 hours, not 8 hours, but sit for 2 hours and then a break, and then another 3 hours and then a break. So I could not have long study sessions because of that, and that just broke my focus, broke my continued focus. The And then I also had 15-hour shifts sometimes. Sometimes I would start my shift sometimes my shift would start at about 7 in the morning and then it would end at about 10 in the night. I'm just talking about when the shift started. You can imagine, because it was 1 hour away, I had to leave an hour earlier. So it was a combination of the money getting to my head, the shift timing not kind of gelling with my study schedule, that I could not give a lot of time to my studies, to my academics. And what I would often notice was that I would get up at say 7:30 in the morning, prepare my breakfast and my lunch and my dinner, because I could not eat outside every time. And when I was working, I had to make sure that I was eating home food. So I would cook my breakfast, I would cook my lunch, I would cook my dinner. I would then head to the library, which could be the Senate House or the British Library. And then even working there, it was like I would sit at the library for about 2 hours or 3 hours, and then I would have to leave because my shift had to start. So it was not like I was spending a lot of time working at the library itself. And because I was an English literature student, I needed to spend about 10 to 12 hours just in the library researching, reading, which I did not do because of the odd shift hours. And then, of course, the money getting to my head, and I was like, okay, I can buy this, I can buy that, and I can do, I actually did not buy a lot of things, but just in seeing that money, I was like, okay, I can probably manage. So that was definitely a bad thing. And then that is it. I mean, I would say it was just the money and the odd timings of the shift that kind of messed up my academic schedule like tremendously. And that is the reason why I did not focus on my academics a lot. And that is the reason why I say to everyone, that I often write on my website even, that working part-time is not a good idea. If you are someone experienced, if you have been working for the past 5 years, 10 years, then you probably know how to kind of deal with that mindset or deal with that money getting to your head thing. But if you're not, if you're someone who's just started, who's just going to start working part-time in London, who has never worked before, then it does get to your head. And that is the reason why I say that working at the university is the best thing, because it's actually very good. I would not say this in this video because this video is not about it, but you can read on my website about it. And I will make separate videos about how you should deal with the money getting to your head and the shift and everything. I'll make separate videos about it, so don't worry about it. But there was just a video about my own experience working part-time in London. I hope that you found it useful. If you have any questions about my experience, you can always send an email to me. I will link up my email in the description box below. And do subscribe to my channel if you think that I'm giving you some valued information. And I hope I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.